teams have lit up the Bears defense. Both NFC Offensive Players of the Week, J.J. McCarthy, who had 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and Jared Goff, who had 5 touchdowns. I don't even know if he played the fourth quarter. They both won Offensive Player of the Week because they got to go up against the Bears. So, what would another Cowboys offensive explosion prove to you?
All right, micro, macro. Okay. Micro, for the show specifically, we might all have to, privately, not publicly.
Privately.
Give Coach an apology or buy him lunch or something.
For what?
We could do that publicly.
Because we were all
doesn't have to be private.
We were all paying lip service to the idea that Brian Schottenheimer might have been a good hire because
Can I
what?
Me and Brew were never
we didn't
on that corner.
Yeah, we were
that
just
was
like,
a
hey,
Nick
we'll
Wright
see. Maybe
exclusive. Yeah, we don't know.
You have to buy lunch.
Don't drag us into your
we were
calamity.
never even talking about him.
All right, so I might have to apologize to Coach because I thought the hire made no sense, and I was tried to be kind because he's Coach's guy. I'm like, this makes this a disaster. And through 2 games, and if we're talking about an offensive explosion, he seems innovative, and the offense seems more I know they scored a bunch of points with Mike McCarthy a couple years ago, but the offense does seem more dynamic without as many weapons as the Cowboys under McCarthy had. They had better offense. They had a Hall of Fame guard, offensive linemen. They had a better running game a couple of years ago. So I think that's more micro. On the macro, I will have to start when I'm doing my, weekly. All right, what do I think at this moment the playoff field could be or would be is start to include the Cowboys because, and this to his credit was Danny's point before the year, if you have a great offense, you're in the mix, no matter what your defense looks like. And the Cowboys thus far are proving that exact point. The great offense, even with the defense that's been really bad, has kept them in the mix.
Look, I agree they would be in the playoff mix. And when you look at some of the teams that aren't quite as good as we expected, Washington might, have a tough year. Obviously, Minnesota and Chicago. They'll be in the mix, but I don't think they prove anything this weekend by beating Chicago. I don't care if they beat them 45-24. Like, they can't they're supposed to do that against these Bears. J.J. McCarthy looked all world in the fourth quarter, and then Russell Wilson, who hasn't looked good in
that was against Cowboys. It was Jared Goff.
I'm sorry. Jared Goff looked fantastic, and he's obviously a good quarterback, but after the way he struggled in week 1.
Passer rating was 156.
Yeah, so if that goes out, it'll be a great win, don't get me wrong. But him going out there throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns, close to 300 yards, will be like, okay, great win. We are putting ourselves in the playoff mix. We got a great chance to start 4-2. Or maybe better, but they got Green Bay next week. You got momentum going into that. But, Coach, I expect them, like, seeing what Chicago's defenses look like, I expect this good offense to have its way with the Bears.
Yeah, so the numbers are pretty bleak for Chicago right now. 32nd in points, 30th in sacks, 28th in total yards, 27th in rushing, 22nd in passing defensively. And then when I went and looked and I said, okay, well, they bring a lot of pressure. They're dead last in the amount of pressure they bring. So here's one thing Chicago would do: blitz more. They're.
It's surprising a Dennis Allen defense has been this passive.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be much more. The numbers would be much more aggressive than they were. And if you're not if you're not having production, at some point you don't want to die by 1,000 paper cuts. You might as well go take some chances and try to create some negative plays. The thing that could be learned here is if Dallas's offense doesn't have an explosive game, I think that's problematic.
Yes.
And then the flip side of that is if Dallas's defense has another bad performance, that could also be a huge concern. So it's more about Dallas not performing in those 2 areas as opposed to, going and performing really well.
Coach, you're big on defenses get better as the team learns and sort of melds with the defensive coordinator. So there's 2 new defensive coordinators. Which defense, in your mind, is going to improve at a faster rate?
Well, with Matt's defense, he brings a lot of pressure more on 3rd downs. That's where he'll bring the exotics. 1st and 2nd down tend to be more vanilla with a lot of effort, intensity, going to the ball. And a lot of guys really like that because they're not necessarily thinking about the adjustment. They're just going and they're playing. And then he brings the complicated stuff more on 3rd down. So that formula's worked for him well over his time in the league. Dennis Allen's done a lot of good things, but it may be a little bit like Zimmer last year, where it takes more time for them to get used to what he's trying to do than what Matt's trying to do in Dallas. Because what Matt's doing in Dallas right now is way easier than what they were doing last year.
Well, and listen, I want to get back to the Cowboys offense in a second, but you guys talking about Matt, in case the audience doesn't know, that's Matt Eberflus, fired head coach of the Chicago Bears. And that's another piece as far as concern for the Cowboys if their defense doesn't look better than it has looked up to this point this season. If anybody knows the strengths and the weaknesses of Caleb Williams, one would hope it'd be Matt Eberflus. You know what I mean? And the strengths and the weaknesses, well, the offensive line, not so much because they remade it in the offseason. But that part, that you would think is a potential edge for Dallas in that. But to the Cowboys offense, just quickly, we were saying, it might have been you, Coach, in the offseason about, hey, the Cowboys are trying to be their version of last year's Bengals. Last year's Bengals, we said were dangerous. Well, I didn't, but a lot of people said were dangerous, right? I understand Dak is not considered in the same regard as Joe Burrow. I get that. CeeDee Lamb, though, is great. George Pickens, up to this point, has been fine. You know what I mean? At least is a threat on the outside. And that, the Cowboys' defense, I don't think we expect, it's not going to be worse than last year's Bengals defense. I guess up to this point, it's been as bad. But that is a viable path to, you know, being a tough out, so to speak.
But
and
you don't think they'd be, I don't think they'd be like a Super Bowl contender.
But I didn't think, the only reason the Bengals were ever considered a Super Bowl contender was because 4 years ago, once Joe Burrow beat Patrick Mahomes. That's the only reason last year's Bengals, it was like, well, you know, and if they draw the Chiefs don't want them because that happened, you know, 4 years ago. But you alluded to it. The Cowboys' schedule, I do think if they win this game, they're set up really well to be 4-2 because the Packers game, even if we just pencil that as a loss, Jets-Panthers, like that's a hell of a first third of the season.
And then the next three aren't, heck, the next four.
Yeah. Dallas has been a little bit banged up in the secondary, but they've got guys in the secondary that can turn the ball over. And that was a big part of their success a few years ago. If they can get back to that.
But can those guys cover for long enough without a pass rush, without Micah?
Well, I know Mike is Superman.
No, it sure seems like they
pretty
miss
darn good.
Coach, it sure seems like they miss it. Like, can you imagine
if they had Micah?
They should see if they could trade Kenny Clark and a couple first-round picks for Micah Parsons.
Bills hosting the Dolphins. Line is at 12.5. Josh is cooked in this situation. 8-0 against the Dolphins at home. 7-0 on Thursday Night Football. Brew, are you giving Miami, one of your favorite teams, any chance tonight?
What are the Bills?
We don't have
a good team.
Oh, good team.
A good team. Then no. This is not to be mean. I like Tua. This is a fact.
Do you?
I do.
Tua's probably thinking, like me less.
He's 3-10 the last 2 years against teams with winning records.
3 wins.
All right.
Though.
He's 1-8 career against the Bills.
1 win though.
No, I give the Dolphins less chance than I'm giving coaches Giants this weekend. Ooh. And the Giants, of course, they play the Chiefs. I give the Giants more of a chance of beating the Chiefs than I give Miami of beating Buffalo. So no way.
Yeah, I was going through the stats and trying to find something encouraging for Dolphins fans, and it was really hard. And then I was thinking, well, maybe road underdogs on a Thursday night. Like that, those numbers are better, but they're not. They're actually less. They're 26% as opposed to underdogs on Sunday or Monday. So that wasn't good. However, Dolphins fans,
found something.
I found something. Last year against the Bills in Buffalo. Do you remember what happened? Yeah.
Tua was great.
25 for 28, 89.3% completion, 231 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 124.9 quarterback rating. They lost on a 61-yard field goal, but he played as well as you could possibly play. So there is hope. There is hope tonight for Miami.
All right, so something.
I mean, I hope it's a good game.
It's as good as he played.
I think this game probably should be a lot like last week's Bills game, where it's 30-10 and it's not that close. You know what I mean? Where the Bills take the foot off their gas. However, I was perusing the Bills' injury report going into this game, and some concerning things jump out at you. Ed Oliver, out. Matt Milano, out. 2 guys in their secondary, questionable, and then a third player, a third starter who I'm forgetting, questionable. So that gave me a touch of pause. The fact that we do know that, as Coach pointed out, this offense, if it has time, can be prolific, that, you know what I mean, gave me a bit of pause. And the fact that Mike McDaniel knows this is an absolute kitchen sink moment for him. Like, that if he wins this game, it honestly might get him the rest of the year. Yeah. Like, it steadies the team, and if they lose this game, he could be fired. We could have on the show tomorrow breaking news. You know what I mean? Mike McDaniel fired. I always think it's
like 3 feels early.
Yeah, I don't remember Stephen Ross firing people this early.
No, and listen, and I think it's bad process to ever bring a coach back and then anything happening during September and you fire the guy. But it feels like that seat's the hottest of any coach. And so I am not ruling out the possibility that on a short week with a very banged up Bills defense up front and a Bills secondary that I don't think is very good to begin with, that all of a sudden we're in a shootout. Like, I think that is an on-the-board option here tonight. And so am I giving them any chance? I'm giving them a chance. Yes.
Nick took him.
No, I didn't take it. I tried. No, my buddy Nacho, who's playing poker in Korea, asked me my handicap on this game, so I dug in for him, and that's
your
what
buddy Nacho is playing poker in Korea.
Nacho Barbero, one of the greatest poker players in the world, he's playing in Korea, and he's got to get this bet in before he goes to bed.
What day is it?
This Sunday, we need to get every tailgater a Pepsi.